So hi everyone, I know you've been waiting for this. So welcome to the Gods of Dune Imperium. So these are the stats from the Dune Immortality rank season 1. So we're left with our last 3 leaders, of which they are Handro, Tesia and Ilban. So with the lowest of the win rates of these 3, so it's the third highest overall, we have Viscount Handro Mauritani. He has a 28.5% win rate and he's quite popular. He has about 500 over games played and 153 wins. So if you want to watch some good gameplay of him, do watch the Muad'Dib Melee May finals. So I have it casted both in black and also have it, I think it was also streamed from CJ's point of view. So do watch it and see why Handro is so powerful. I think Kasparov 1991 or Wade Bararich, right, who is the eventual champion, right? He played it in both round 2 and round 3, and he played it in second position both games, and he won convincingly in both. And you get to see why Handro is so powerful, right? Handro, based on the current meta, very often he gets interstellar shipping by himself. Sometimes people just don't bother about it, and when no one bothers about interstellar shipping, the person who has sole control over it gets an enormous advantage, especially on Handro. Handro's passive also allows him to take intrigues. These intrigues can high roll in so many ways. You can happen to draw a combat card, and this can enable you to win the first combat, very often leading to a point or to a faction bump that gives you interstellar shipping access. So there are like so many ways to sneak into interstellar shipping access, or just for one intrigue to get you a hit. Like if you know that the other card is also a combat card, you also know like who can beat you if they were to draw it. So these intrigues on top of that, knowing the next intrigue, at least early on when everything is so limited, right, is very, very powerful. You control the first combat almost as much as the beast, right? And if you don't go draw the first intrigue, a lot of times players will try to avoid the first intrigue, even though it might be decent or in some sense good as well. Right, there are a lot of other cards that also can give you access to interstellar shipping, like round 1 or round 2. You can somehow get bribery, guild authorization, finesse, strong arm, and just high roll your way to interstellar shipping access. You know, once you get there, you just strangle it completely, and leads to very high roll games of Handro. So there are just so many intrigues you can draw, which make you feel so far ahead. Right, you can also draw like intrigues that allow you to get VPs, right? Because you dig 2, you have a game plan, and you increase your probability of drawing one of these intrigues. Sometimes you can even see 2 of them at the top of the deck, then just plan your whole game around it. Or you can even draw one of these almost like broken or like super powerful intrigues like plans within plans or corner the market. These intrigues are strong enough for you to build your entire game plan around it. And if your entire game plan is built around these 2 cards, you can very easily win your game, because you have very easy points that other players do not know about. So there are many ways to high roll with Handro. Yeah, and many intrigues that you can draw. I think you can draw like urgent mission as well, and you can draw a lot of other powerful intrigues that do help you to win the game. So just by drawing 2 intrigues at the start of the game gives you a game plan and gives you that advantage. I think that Handro can really snowball. So one thing I want to note, right, is that Handro, right, when he's played, he's very often picked in second position or sometimes first position, right? And so actually this actually influences his win rate. So I want you to think about which position you think has the highest win rate, and where is Handro picked. So he very often falls to the second position, and the position win rate data will come out in a following video. I think maybe in about a week's time we'll talk about positions, and I'll talk a little bit more about this. But I think this is one of the reasons why his win rate is as such. He's very often picked in second position. And actually, in the scheme of things, right, amongst all the leaders at high elo, right, he actually sits at around 40% win rate. And this is actually below the average of like the high elo win rate. Like, so high elo, right, players, they generally win around 41% of the time. And yeah, when they play Handro, actually it's below the average. So I asked last week about where do you think Baron is. A lot of people said Baron fell right off, right? However, I think Seven Spirits mentioned it quite well. You know, he doesn't think that Baron's ring is what really generates him all the power. See, and Baron's win rate actually is really very high. Baron's win rate is actually at 48% at high elo. So at I think in general population his elo might be average, but at high elo where people know like how to maximize their intrigues, you know, and know how to still get like how to still maneuver a game of Baron without having interstellar shipping by yourself or swordmaster to yourself, right? Yeah, you can. It's still very very strong. So Baron is still a very strong leader. So digress a little bit from Handro. So here we have all the other leaders except for the top two. You can see that I think after the top two you have Baron, Beast, Yuna, and Handro. I think these are the clear next favorite, with Paul and Amanikes like lingering behind. But I think the next four, so like Baron, Beast, Yuna, and Handro are really the competitive picks. And maybe to some extent Leto, just that Leto is not very utilized in low elo well, or even in any elos well. But if you know how to use him, I think Leto is still strong. Okay, so finally we get to the gods or the immortals of immortality. So who do you think is next on the win rate? Next on the overall win rate actually is Tesia. Tesia's at a 32.5% win rate. Okay, she has a total of 590 games played and 192 wins, so this is very high. And I want to ask yourself, do you think Tesia is stronger in Immortality, or do you think Tesia players just have figured out how to play Tesia? I think when Rise of X first came out, a lot of people didn't know how to play Tesia. People stayed away from it because there was just too much text to read. Eventually, people figured out how to play her, and I think her win rate has been steadily improving ever since people have figured it out. And as she has demonstrated, I think in Rise of X, she was noted as like top or first or second leader because of the power of the shipping track. She's still very strong. So one thing I've been talking about in these videos is the tension between your ring and your experimentations. In Immortality, you want to play your experimentations, and that means you want to play your signet ring actually less and less. So one thing is that Tesia's signet ring gives her flexibility, and the snoopers give her power. So even though you might not play your signet ring, right, it doesn't really hinder your power. In fact, the signet ring, yeah, it gives you flexibility mostly. But a lot of times people are still playing it round 1, round 2, at least from the Tesia players that I've seen. But I've seen how that they are very constantly able to get into interstellar shipping access for quite a cheap cost. A lot of times they don't even go full space. At least that's how I've seen the meta been recently. And they find a way to interstellar shipping access, and they're able to play the experimentations there at a regular, like at least 2 or 3 times throughout the game. Okay, so this is the power of the ring. And if you look at the players who play her, have an insane win rate with her. Alright? And Gristlepuff has an 80% win rate with her out of 15 games played. And then you have GVX and Shrinkmail Mail who have over a 60% win rate with her. Tesia is insanely strong. I feel like I'm on a back foot against Tesia players all the time, and I hate playing against Tesia players now. So I asked Gristlepuff actually, like, how do you play Tesia? Or like, do you have any tips for Tesia? So his answer to me was quite funny. He said, actually, I just watched your guide on how to play Tesia, and I started playing Tesia, and I've been doing quite well with her. So it was quite funny. So do check out the Tesia Vernus guide that I posted, and I think Gristlepuff refers to it, so you can refer to it too and get to his win rate as well. So last of all, we have Count Ilban. So Count Ilban has a 32.6% win rate. This is a 0.1% win rate higher than Tesia, which to me is insignificant. I mean, it's just all about, it's the same, right? A 0.1% win rate difference. But I mean, he's first in overall win rate. So Count Ilban, very popular, 684 games, and out of that he has 223 wins. So I like to point out that actually in sometime last year, this is still Rise of X, right? In September, I actually was talking to Lannister and I said I think Ilban is underrated. This is before the uh, last GPI, right? And I told him that I think Ilban is underrated, and um, I think at the start of Immortality, there are some players who did not think Ilban is very strong. I mean, Oski has him as F tier, and Lannister at this point still has him as B tier. So one of the reasons why Ilban is good in Immortality is that drawing cards is good. I think I talked about it when I talked about Paul, but when you draw cards now, right, you draw in your experimentations, and your experimentations turn into points, right? So the more cards you draw, you just turn into passive points. So that's one of the reasons why Ilban is so good, and Ilban actually is the best leader to draw cards because of how powerful Mentat is. Right, and experimentations can lead you into all the good Tarexu cards first also, because you just happen to hit it fast. You don't even need to spend your water to go to research station. If you're wondering how to play Ilban, I have tons of videos on this channel about how to play Ilban, and I think you can watch the first video on this channel is how to Ilban, and that's a Rise of X game. But all I do is I go to Mentat whenever I can, alright, and when I have 8, I go to Swordmaster. Yeah, and a lot of these games are, you don't think you can win, but yeah, you actually can just go Mentat and you'll win the game. Everyone else is fighting for Swordmaster, and then here you are going Mentat and you end up with the win. So how to play Ilban? You just go to Mentat. This space is insane for you. You draw 2 cards. This allows you to do a lot of things. It allows you to act last in combat, it allows you to buy with more persuasion, and I don't think new players recognize how powerful just delaying your action is for Mentat. And a lot of things in the game snowball, and Mentat is one of the things that, even though it costs Solari, a lot of times the snowball is worth it. So one thing is that at any elo, right, blocking Mentat is not as simple as it seems. No, every time you hear about like someone's playing Ilban, no, all you need to do is just go Mentat and block him. It might seem as a simple counter, but a lot of times the game doesn't play off like that. Right, early game, right, the Solari is very tight, right? Who else is spending 2 Solari to kind of block you at Mentat? Very often they are not doing it, or even if they're doing it, they're not doing it as their first action as well. So no one is really gonna block you for early Mentats, because everyone wants to keep their Solari for Swordmaster. Then in late game, right, there's so many premium spots that players in front of you wants to go for, right? And because of how these premium spots are, like if you don't go for it, someone else will go for it, right? And then if you're sitting in front of Ilban, the whole table expects you to sacrifice your game to block him and Mentat. But if that doesn't further your game along, would you do it? Well, sometimes it's the right thing to do, but a lot of times, you feel as though it's not your problem as well. The table should all go to Mentat, but no one wants to be the one to sacrifice himself. And because let's say if the player before him, right, is Leto. Leto has spent his spice and finally he has shipping access, but the player after Ilban also has shipping access. During his turn, do you think he'll go to interstellar shipping, or do you think he'll go to Mentat? Generally, he'll go to interstellar shipping because that is the premium space he wants to go to. And if he doesn't go to it, the player after Ilban will go to interstellar shipping. So all Ilban needs is 1 turn, and Ilban would happily take Mentat on the first action, right? He pays 2 Solari, he draws 2 cards. He can function totally without Swordmaster and be happy. Okay, so with regards to win rate, you have Sneaker Dead, who has a 52% win rate, and he has played 46 games and he has won 29 of them, and you have GVX, who has a 59% win rate with him and played about 32 games and won 19 of them. So you can perform very consistently with Ilban, and I think a lot of players perform very consistently with him on the fourth position. And I think in 4th position, a lot of times you don't really have a good leader to play, and a lot of times Count Ilban is played in 4th position, right? And so in 4th position, you pick Count Ilban and you find some way to win games, and I think that is keeping 4th players' win rate afloat. But if you ask yourself what is the best position to play Ilban, so this another one of the statistics which I have quite early for season 2, but we'll talk about it in a later video. But do comment below on what position do you think is best to play Ilban, and like what positions do you think are best overall. So in terms of high elo win rate, actually, Ilban is at a 51.2% win rate, and Tesia is at a 51.7% win rate. So in terms of overall win rate, Ilban is higher, but in terms of high elo, Tesia is slightly higher. But it's also it's marginal. Like these two sit so high above like the rest. Like it's not even funny. Like they are so strong. They are really the gods of immortality. Anytime you have them in your game, you should watch out for them, regardless of who's playing it, because their likelihood to win the game is so much higher just by picking these leaders. So we have here the Immortals. We have Count Ilban and Tesia Vernius. So, do you think they should get nerfed? And if so, how? But here overall is the overall leaders and the statistics for season 1. I think all the players who have played in season 1, I'm glad to see how active it is from season 2. I think on average every day we have about 72 games of ranked games that are played, so quite a lot of ranked games. But at the same point in time, I do encourage everyone to be a welcoming, friendly community. I think we have seen an uptick of bad behavior, and we would prefer if no one has to step in or no one has to moderate it somehow. So be nice to each other. I mean, there are games in the end, and ranks are just fake internet points. So things like colluding or things like working together also is frowned upon. So I would strongly advise players not to do it. And with that, we end off this series, and I hope you enjoyed it. Do write your comments about any of these leaders and your thoughts, and I'll chime in below with the info that I have. Thanks for watching. See you around.